The following presentation was recorded live at the Richmond Marriott in Richmond, Virginia for the 29th Annual International Association of Square Dance Callers Convention. This is tape number 27, 12th Night Dance Material.
Good morning. My name is Milt Floyd. I'll be the moderator for this panel, and the two panelists, Mike Seastrom, Chris Pickham. We all three use a multi-cycle teaching program, and this is called 12th Night Dance Material. However, 12th night can be the 18th night if you use a 17-cycle program. It can be the 25th night if you use a 24. Basically, what we're looking at is when we get through the first phase of our teaching program and have our new dancers out there ready to go try out their new skills, what type of material do we use to keep them enthused about our activity? I use what's called a 10-week program. However, it is in reality 12 weeks because the first week is free and we don't count that. And then I go through 10 weeks of teaching. And then the 12th night is a dance. Now, the type of material I use is probably different than what every one of us uses, because if we all use the same thing, it would be very boring. A typical 12th night in my program would be, the first tip would be for the first phase dancers, those who have completed 10 weeks of learning. The second tip would be for those who have completed 20 weeks of learning. The third tip is where we try to put some fun into it, and at this point I will usually use like a hex square tip. I will get everybody out there and use hexes. Don't use any just fading in and out. Don't use any moves that aren't on what you've taught. Fourth tip, we go back to first phase. Fifth tip to second phase. And the sixth tip again, we use something else like an exploding square or a progressive square. Seventh and eighth tip are first and second phase. And the ninth tip, I usually end up the night with a contra. And this is where things are somewhat different from the standard because I don't use typical contra music. Is anyone familiar with Enrique Iglesias? Okay. I use some of his music for my contras. They flow very well. They're nice. They're a nice, pleasant music to end the night with. I also use Mark Anthony, and if I do a contra earlier in the evening when the floor is up, I will use artists such as Pink, Shakira, Chris Isaac, things like this. So a more modern type of music. But you can adapt our program to that. And so what I would recommend, how many of you own this book, Contras? Quite a few. Okay. How many of you own this book, Specialized Squares and Crowd Pleasers? Again, quite a few. These are two books that I would highly recommend that be in your case. They give you a lot of variety and a lot of flexibility in your program. And look at your music that you're using too, because you don't have to use the music that's specified in here. You can adapt just about any music with a good solid 8-beat phrasing to fit our contras and to fit our other squares. So think about that for your programs. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Seastrom, who's been calling for 39 years. I told him that's longer than I am. And he's going to explain a little bit. Mike also uses a multi-cycle program. I believe yours is 17 weeks. And he's going to talk a little bit about what he does. So here's Mike Seastrom.
You know, just for the tape, we might once again mention these books. They're Specialized Squares and Crowd Pleasers is a book that Gene Trimmer put out. I believe that book is available with Hanhurst and Palomino and a couple other sources. The other one is Contras. It's by the late Don Armstrong, and this really has become a Bible for those of us that use Contras. It not only explains or gives examples of Contras, but shows pictures and is a great source for Contras. I again agree with Milt here that the music that you use, the neat thing about Contras or any of the dances that we do is that you can use a variety of music and and dependent upon the group that you are targeting. If you're targeting younger dancers or you're calling to younger dancers, I would suggest that you use music that they can relate to. It's a lot more fun for them, and it's very surprising to them because everybody has this image of our dance. And I think when we use older music, it once again reconfirms that image of just being an old dance. And so I think you can add a lot to your program and add a lot of variety. And if you do use an old piece of music, you do use a music that's 30 and 40 and 50 years old, that you tell everybody, this is a piece of music that we used back in the 60s or back in the 50s. And although things have changed, sometimes the fun in the dance is providing a little bit of variety and giving them some history about where the dance has come over the years. I think that gives a neat appreciation for our activity, and we shouldn't lose that, although I don't think you should keep using the same records in your case year after year after year after year. I did provide a handout, and one of the common questions that we received last night at that 12-night session. How many attended that session, by the way? I think there was nothing else going on at that time, was there? Was that or the bar? Anyway, one of the common questions we've got is how many calls? What do you guys teach down with the 12th night? And as Milt said, it depends on how long you're programmed. Do your classes last 2.5 hours? Do they last 2 hours? Do they last an hour and a half? And one of the things that I said to one of the members of the executive committee, who is also the planning committee for these conventions, is I said, isn't it kind of interesting that the three of us that you've chosen for this 12th night panel all use the multi-cycle program? And he said that was intentional. Which I grinned. I said, "All right, I like that." How many of you use a multi-cycle approach to teaching your dancers? I'm amazed. We've been preaching this program for 5 and 6 years. It's not a new concept at all. Darryl McMillan, who was chairman of this organization in the 80s, used it in the 80s and had 10-week programs going that were very successful. The bottom line is, gang, is if we're going to get more dancers, we have to offer square dancing to the public out there more than one time a year. Market researchers told us years ago that if you only have a product that you allow people to join one time a year, you don't have a product. And either you come around and wake up to the fact that you need to open the opportunity for people to join your activity more than one time a year, or your activity is going to die. And that's why we who use this program and have stuck with it, because it's a little bit of an effort to do this and to start classes 3 times a year or more, 4 times a year. There's a lot of effort to that, but if you want something, if you want new dancers, and you say as a group or as a club we want new dancers, then focus your attention on it. It's like anything in life. If you want something bad enough, focus your attention on it, set some goals, tweak it, work at it, and you'll get it. And the bottom line is the clubs that are using these programs and that have dedicated themselves to it and not just given up after a year, because it takes more than a year. It took us 2.5 years to get them enough momentum going where this program carries itself. Somebody asked me last night, what kind of advertising do you do for your class? We don't do anything special. Personal recruiting. I have I have some copies of some cards here that I will pass out, and I also have these at another session that we're doing in the next hour. But they're simple business cards, and many of you people have seen these cards before. Basically, they're cards that we give every member of our club and every member of our class that just it basically describes on a simple business card the name of our club, says Learn to Square Dance, has what nights we dance, and we start 3 times a year. We start in January and in May and September, and it tells the times, and this card is good for a free night. And get these in the hands of every new dancer in your class and every club member that you have. Make sure they carry these around in their wallet, because they are our recruiters. They are our salespeople. And it gives them the opportunity when they talk about square dancing to put something in somebody's hand right now and say, come with this. This is a ticket for a free night. Come with our group. And so you're constantly creating a source of a vehicle to recruit new dancers. That's the key to the multi-cycle program, is you use your new dancers when they are at their peak of enthusiasm to recruit their friends into the activity, and they can dance with those people immediately. And that's the neat thing about it. Our people aren't even done with haven't gone even through the whole program yet, but they're angeling their friends and physically dancing with their friends and getting a review on the material again. And the bottom line is that they keep bringing more people, but it takes a while to get that momentum. And occasionally your momentum gets killed. We had an incident last September with the incident of 9/11. Our new program started on 9/11. And the next week was Rosh Hashanah, and we were open for 2 weeks. We had a real slim September. But fortunately, our program's been going on long enough that some of the people that were attending sparsely through the summer came and rejoined us again when things had calmed down a bit. They had danced with us a bit, so we still had a bit of a phase. But those things happen. You go through a recruiting slump, whatever it is. But the bottom line is that you keep working at it, and you keep it going. You provide something that goes every night. If you can do it and keep it going all the way through the year, you're just that much better off. And as far as keeping your momentum, you provide a place for these people to dance, and it's also a great program for people to re-enter the activity. They can re-enter at various times of the year, and we have a lot of people that join our program that have danced with other clubs in the area, come through my program with the multi-cycle program, and they're right back into their club that they were in before, because their club didn't have to have it a class, or the timing is, this once a year type class thing that in my opinion is just passe. I just think you need to have more than one class a night, and it works that way. Could you? Yeah.
I'd like to interject something right there. If your club is the only one doing multi-cycle, you have a very big advantage. In Minneapolis, the club I work with is the only one doing multi-cycle. And so all these other clubs that start in September with their new dancers, they have friends. And they want to get into dancing. But their club that those friends belong to only starts in September. So guess where they bring their new dancers? They bring them to our club. Doesn't make any difference to me whether they join our club or not. They're in the activity, and that's what we have to focus on, is get them dancing in the activity. In the back?
What is the title of this session?
Just a minute. No.
Tess, you wanted to talk about this, but put it on the microphone, okay?
Joe Casey from Dover, New Hampshire. I was a little upset. I thought the program was on 12th night material, not CDP program.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the CDP. I'm just talking about the multi-cycle way of keeping new dancers. And I apologize for getting off the subject a bit, but it was just so please accept my apology. I guess those of us that use the program have a real passion for it, and so I excuse me if I offended anybody. There we go. Let's talk then. Let's get back on 12th night. Thank you, Joe, for getting us back on track. With the CALLERLAB mainstream program, I've got that sheet listed in the handout. Personally, I'm down to in the 39, 38, 39, 40 area in the 12th week of my class. We have hour-and-a-half sessions, and so I don't think it's that important where you are. Personally, I like to make each class night a dance. I call a singing call with every tip. I use things in between the tip, and I've included copies of dances like the Electric Slide, Ruby Baby, Tough Enough, which are simple line dances. Cornell Crawford's another one. I like to teach some couple dances, so I use just maybe once or twice during each phase, because I generally do 3 to 4 tips in an hour and a half, and in between those tips, I'll do a simple mixer or a line dance or something. It's just a personal preference with me. Not everybody in my club agrees that we should do these things because they feel like I should just keep plugging away and teach more calls and more calls and more calls. But I really like to tie these people into the activity by more than just the number of calls they know. I like to talk about history. I like to get out on the floor and talk about styling. How many use a portable mic at your class? I think it's critical to have a portable mic and get out on the floor physically and show your people styling. Show them how to do-a-do. Show them how to swing. Show them what the walk and dance step is. These are critical parts of our dance. And if you physically get on the floor, it makes a huge difference in you connecting to the dancers. If you're standing up on the stage all night long, or don't get down there with them, I think you lose a real chance to connect with your people and retain them in your class. So I think it's really important that you physically get down, and if you got the chance to talk to people between the tips and shake their hands as they come in and out of the door, you're even that much farther along. So I've also included the Cotton Eye Joe, the 10-step, and the barn dance that I used last night at the 12th night session. I listed on our resource list here the Caller Teacher Manual from Sets in Order American Square Dance Society. I just believe that every caller should have that in their library. Caller Text also, which is Sets in Order American Square Dance Society. It's a book that was put out in 1985 by Bob Osgood. That's another document that should be in callers' libraries. There's every subject in square dancing that there can be, and although it was a document published in 1985, many of those articles go back into the history of Sets in Order American Square Dance Society magazine in those topics, so many of them are crucial today and are great resources for you. I just think it's very helpful to have that. I also think you ought to have a copy of the CALLERLAB definitions with current timing and styling, and I think every night before you teach, you ought to be looking at those definitions and looking at the styling and include that styling when you teach at the same time. I'm fortunate enough in our groups to have a class coordinator that just hears any kind of rumblings, and I always invite him to bring those rumblings up because it normally brings up something that I needed to talk about. And whether it's personal hygiene or whether it's somebody being rough with another dancer, and I think it's easy enough to talk to the whole group and not zero in on people. I use country western line dances. I don't do a lot of them. I don't do real difficult ones. And one of the great resources I find is Dee Dee Doherty has two great books called Dance with Dee Dee and More Dancing with Dee Dee, and they're excellent books that give you some great line dances and give you some music resources. I also listed the records that I use. Once again, you can use a lot of different music and cater that music toward the age of your group, and I think it makes a big difference. I can, but we'll go ahead and let Chris talk a little bit. Anybody else has any comments or questions? Just as a show of hands, how many of you make your class nights like a dance? A good vast majority of you do. Great. I also try to get away from class. I usually say, welcome to the Valley Trailers Tuesday night new dancer night, or new dancer dance. And I try to get away from classes. I find I fall back into these terms, but I think the terms we use sometimes people think they're in class instead of just getting out there and dancing every night. There's a bit of a thing about with it. Some people stigma, yeah, with being in a class, but I don't know how much that affects, and I think there's good arguments on both sides whether the words we use like that are critical. I'm just trying to do that, and sometimes it's hard to beat old habits. They tend to go right back to those words. I guess I should ask, are there any other questions? Anybody have questions? We can go back over, but we're all going to get a chance to talk a little bit and then go from there. No questions? Okay, very good. Let's listen to Chris, and maybe Chris can explain on what he does with his program and on about the 12th night or so.
Good morning. My name is Chris Pickham. I'm from Hillsborough, New Hampshire, and I too run a multi-start program. I'm not going to talk about it because we're already looking at some folks that are dealing with that kind of a program. When I got here Monday morning, I was handed my schedule, and I thought I was going to be in another panel, so I'm already in big trouble. But what I do at home is I do work with a multi-start program on an annual basis. So what I try to do, because I'm only allowed 1 hour segments to teach my programs, what I also try to do is from time to time get off the square dance venue, but without drifting from the material that the folks already know. So on a night where the people have had enough square dancing, then I'm going to put something else into the program, such as a basic contra or a basic reel. One of my favorites would be like an OXO reel. I came with nothing with regards to music because, again, we didn't know we were going to be in here. But on any given night, I try to put at least one other form of dance into the program based on a material that the people already know, or something that can be taught quickly that doesn't take a lot of time because I'm severely limited with time. And again, I only have an hour to teach each phase of the evening, and I teach 3 phases in one night. So what I try to do is find music that I can deal with that appeals to a fairly broad audience, but I also have children in my groups as well. And with the children in there, I cannot use some of the older sounding music, so I try to come up with newer types of music to use. I've been fortunate enough to be involved in the music end of the business for a couple of years, so that's given me a pretty big collection of music in a short amount of time. So I like to use certain singing calls when I do my contra work, and I like to use other types of folk dancing, such as the New Zealand dance called the Kiwi Ring for a crowd pleaser. I get a lot of good response from that when I use it. I also I'm not big on line dancing. It's not my specialty, so I'm not really into the line dancing end of it. But I have found that Sicilian circles and trios become a very, I get a good positive response from those in my programs. And the nice thing about those is that you can adapt some fairly new music to those and keep the energy up in the program itself. The lack of teaching time in my group means that when our new dancers go out to a dance, they're usually not on the same par with other classes. But one of the things in our area is there aren't that many classes, so the fact that they aren't getting out hasn't become a major problem. I also do not do a 12th night event because I'm based on a 3-month start, or a 4-month start rather. So on any given evening on that basis, I may only be as far as a square through on a 12th night. So I'm not on the same par with regards to what calls are being taught by any particular group in the area. But again, we're seeing such a downturn in New England that my material is pretty much limited to the basic list, and I have nothing to offer with regards to what I might do with regards to square dance material. But alternatively, I will use other types of folk dancing for an evening's work, and I try to take music that's contemporary and upbeat. I try to stay away from the banjos and fiddles because I have a younger crowd that seems to appreciate some of the newer music. And we're also experimenting with some of the techno-pop music that seems to be a crowd pleaser. Pardon me. I'm just trying to, I've made notes as I've gone along here. I'm going to blank here for a second, Mike. I'm going to hand this back to you because I'm going to regroup for half a second here. Okay.
You know, just wanted to mention this book that Chris has got up here. It's called Dancing for Busy People. It's by Cal Campbell, Ken Kernan, and Bob Howell. It is a great resource of dances that Chris was talking about, that has round dances and no partner dances and trios and that kind of thing. So it's an excellent resource to use, and I'd highly recommend that if you want to include those kind of things and you have time to include those kind of things in your new dancer program. Well, let's transfer this down here so we can, because we do have a question. So.
Yeah, the new Dancing for Busy People has become a resource for me because I've only been doing this for 10 years, and I've achieved a relatively decent degree of success in my area, but to become a new caller and to fast track the material in a short amount of time, you need solid reference material to do this. And that book has become it's become my Bible, basically, because there's a whole lot of material to learn in a short amount of time. And I come from an area where there are some very experienced and masterful callers that go way beyond my field of expertise. So for me to sit here and talk about what I might use, it's a little bit different. But again, if you're a new or newer caller, or you're looking for some original or not original ideas necessarily, then that book does become a great resource. And there are about 300 dances in the book that can be used on an alternative night, or a night that you would want to use square dance terminology, but you don't want to get into extended instruction phases. And this is a great way to do that.
I'm Carter Ackerman from Pennsylvania. We've talked a lot about alternative music and new music. Could you make some specific suggestions as to how we could get some ideas or lists and plug into this source?
As far as lists go, that the list could be very extensive. I fortunately had 2 teenage daughters. They're 20 and 24 now, but I had the benefit of having them around to know what music they listened to, and so that gave me the edge on the type of music that the generation I'm looking to bring in, that early 20s to 30 age. What music are they listening to? And if you have teenagers, you got a big leg up, because listen to their music. That's what they're looking for. I'd never, when I started calling 17 years ago, I never heard of Pink or Shakira or REM or any of these Limp Bizkit, things like this. But this is what the kids are listening to. And if we want to bring that age in, then that's the music we have to look at. The 50s music with the more bluegrass sound, and don't misunderstand me, because I love bluegrass too, but that sound brings back what they went through in school on the 78 records. And that's not the image that we want with modern square dance. So I make an effort to modernize my music. I use a lot of contemporary pop, I guess would be a more appropriate term. For those of you that buy my records, you see the music that I produce, and that's more the modern stuff. Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, Uncle Kracker. For most of you, you're probably wondering in your mind, who are these people? These are the artists that the kids are listening to. And I say kids because I'm over 50, so anybody under 30 is a kid. So
Yes.
As a follow-up question on that, do you use music that actually has the vocals and everything on it, and you just do your calls over the top of that, or are you limiting it to instrumental music? When you give all these names, these are people that sing songs, not instrumentals. So my question is, are you using the vocal track of these things and talking over the top of them?
Yes and no. When I do contras, where the prompting, once they learn the figure, isn't as important, yes, I just use the music as is. When I do other things with it, I have a program called Cakewalk that allows me to retract the music and take the vocals out. And so then I just use just the music. Yes.
It's interesting. I should mention that there is a session that last year was a Birds of a Feather session called Alternative Music. It was so popular and so well attended, and so many of the convention critique sheets that we received were so positive on this session that there is a whole night dedicated to that this evening. So please, if you're interested in alternative music, attend this, and they'll talk about their sources for alternative music. Yes.
Let's keep it on the mic.
My name is Jerry Helt from Cincinnati, Ohio. We were talking about, maybe I got here just a little late, and I hope if I'm off track, just tell me and I'll sit down. But last night was a 12th night dance. And one gentleman got up and did a real great job, but he used a lot of swing throughs, runs, chain down the line. He used a whole series of things last night. And I was real curious about that. worried me a little bit because I tried to maintain, or myself tried to maintain, a 12th night dance. Well, somebody approached this gentleman and said, you really kind of got off the list of 12th night. And he says, oh, my dancers dance that on the 12th night.
I can respond to that, Jerry, because I'm the one. Okay. The program that I use, Jerry, is a 10-week through the basics at standard position only. And so after 10 weeks, the dancers that I work with in my program can dance those moves from standard position only. I teach waves and swing through at week 6. And I teach circulates, end centers, boys and girls in week 7. So last night was a sampling of what some of us do at our 12th night dance. And at the 12th night dance, the moves that I called last night are ones that I have actually taught the dancers that have worked with me, have been dancing these moves for 3 and 4 weeks. So it wasn't something they just learned. So, as we stated at the very beginning, every one of us teach at a different pace. Every one of us arrive at a different point at a different time. And so the 12th night for each one of us is going to be different. Does that answer your question? Thank you, Jerry.
When I talked with some of the executive committee meeting on what they meant by 12th night, their response to me was if you had a 2.5-hour session that in your class, that the 12th night might be perceived as being halfway. And I said to that executive committee meeting, I said, is halfway, you mean like up through Ferris wheel? And they said, yes, that's about as far as you'd go with some people. Now, if you only have an hour and a half, obviously your 12th night's going to be a little bit different. And if you only have an hour, it's going to be different. And depending upon how many other things you do with your class, if you just do squares, or if you include a mixer, or if you include line dancing, or a contra, or a trio, or whatever, that might vary too. So the number of calls, I think, would be anywhere from down in maybe square through all the way up through Ferris wheel, depending upon which square through would be number 23 on the list, and Ferris wheel might be 56 on the list. So it might include anywhere of that span in there. And I think last night's dance showed that we might just be doing simple type things, and we might be all the way up to where I don't think it would be called a Ferris wheel, or we did do a circulate. We did a couple circulates, but yeah, we do wheel and deals. I'm definitely through wheel and deals on my 12th night. So yes, Joe.
Joe Casey, Dover, New Hampshire. In our area, a 12th night dance would be considered an open dance. Therefore, you would have students from different instructors. And experience-wise, I found that if I drop back 3 weeks from where I am, I probably am safe.
Joey, I think you're absolutely right. I agree with you on that. We have dances in our area that once a month are held at and all the classes, there's 8 different clubs in our area that sponsor those. They alternate in sponsoring a dance each month. And we find that most of us that call that dance just drop back 3 to 4 weeks or more, whatever it takes to keep everybody dancing and everybody having a fun time. And that's the bottom line is your success on your floor. So I couldn't agree with you more. Is there another comment?
Joe, I can also comment on that. I find in the 12th night, other clubs send dancers to our dance. And when you're calling, as we all know, you attempt to call to the floor. And if you call something and you see the floor drop, it's very easy to find out what hasn't been taught. And so you just adjust your programming for the rest of the night to accommodate that floor, which means you may not be able to call a wheel and deal, or you may not be able to call square through because the other groups haven't learned it. So,
Elmer Claycomb from Prescott Valley, Arizona. I'm in a rural enough area that I call for the 2 clubs that are within about 50 miles that run classes, and for many years they've had a halfway dance, which comes real close to coinciding with that 12th week. And every year when I do that dance, I look out at the floor and think this is probably the most successful dance I do a year, because it's one of the bigger dances. The club always comes and supports it. Both clubs, because what they do is they alternate it year after year from one club to the other. They carpool together, go over to the, whoever the other place is. And I've been thinking, why is it a successful dance for the experienced dancers? Well, one of the things is I'm using material that I taught the class, the old goalpost figure, separate, go round one, come into the center. Well, for the experienced dancer, that is different. Once they got out of class, they haven't danced it for the last year until they go the halfway dance again. And other things that I worked the class on, and then I think, geez, I don't do it with the regular club. So, there are just so many things that, when you're at 12th week, just because you're calling at that level doesn't mean you're not doing things that are different for the rest of the dancers. And the club dancers, they're trying to be on their toes and show people how well they can do. Now, one thing different, since I know what both clubs are doing, I use the material I just used the night before, because they're really good on that. That's what they just worked, and I have to look and make sure that somebody missed the last session is not out on the floor. I got to clue them in or get them with somebody that's strong. But shoot, I know who missed the class anyhow. If I screw up, there's nobody to blame but myself, because they're all the folks that I screwed it up if they don't do it. But I think this 12th night, or whatever you call it, halfway dance, is one of the biggest opportunities we have to cement square dancing and start cementing the relationship between the club and the new dancers.
I couldn't agree more for you. I think the neat thing about that is there are now some clubs that now, after the 12th night or halfway point, if that's where it is in your particular program, are now including those people in their club dances. If your club's only dancing 3 or 4 squares and your class is 3 or 4 squares, why don't you take and make your club dances alternating tips? Get those people involved with your club. Our club does that, and we have huge dances as a result of that. Every other tip is mainstream, and we call it mainstream, but sometimes the class is not to that point, or the classes in the area aren't to the point. So I email the caller who's calling that dance, and I let them know that it's not full mainstream. It's up to maybe walk and dodge or something. That's as far as that caller goes, and he channels those tips to the new dancers. And by integrating our new dancers early on with our club members at our club dances and the social functions that our club does, it keeps those people with us, and we're more apt to join our club, and the transition from class to club is simpler. But like I say, Elmer brings up a good point on this, using variety that you would call to your newer dancers that your experienced dancers don't necessarily get a chance to do, and the enthusiasm that these new dancers are terrific. So,
Hal Barnes from Bowie, Maryland. Probably most of the people in here went to the dance last night, and I'd really like to compliment the program that put that on. It was really outstanding to see callers who are challenge callers and so on out there doing simple things and smiling and enjoying it. Hey, if those people are having a good time and not getting bored, then this is a good thing. And it was very well done. And as a result of that, your title of your session today attracted a lot of us. Now, we spent a fair amount of time talking about multi-cycle. We then negotiated a fair amount of time about what is the call that is the 12th night. For argument's sake, pick one and get back to the subject of this, which is the material you did last night, because that's what brought us in here to begin with.
Okay. How many want to look at specific figures and material that you're using on the 12th night? Raise your hand. How many do you want the specific figures that you're using at that time? Are you looking for things that we use as far as choreography at that particular time? Okay, because I can talk about that. I can talk about music. If you want to listen to some of the music that we do, we can do that. Doesn't really make. We can go either way on it. If you want to put up a square in the front here, we have enough for. I don't know if we have enough for 4 squares here. We'd have to roll back the chairs. You're gonna do progressive exploding squares or something like that? We could do. Sure, we sure can. Anybody wants to? Let's put together a square up here. Anybody got a square? Well, let's just start out with a square, and let's look at some of the choreography that we use on a 12th night. Yeah. Okay, we got one couple. We need 3 more couples. First of all, somebody want to talk about music. You were talking about music, Hal, that some music that has, now let's go, some music that's just different, and that's music that you can call to, that's that does not have a we got set. All right. This is a piece of music that's available. It's a singing call. It's on Red Boot. It's called Feel Good Blues, and it's Red Boot 3084. I like it for a patter. It's got a lot of music in there, but you can prompt it or kind of call to it. So let's start out. If this was 12th night, this would be something I'd be using. All right, here we go now. Sides face, grand square. Let's go. Come on. Oh, you're looking good. Come on, reverse. Let's go. Hey. Four ladies chain straight across. Come on. You chain her right back home and then join hands. You circle around that ring. Left out on band, come back, go right on left grand. So that instrument, I wouldn't try to call over some of that instrumentation. So listen to the music and promenade. Back home. Come on, promenade. I said promenade. Heads move up and back. Go right on left through. You roll away a half sachet. Pass through, separate round one. Come all the way to the middle. With your partner, turn her with the right hand round to the corner girl. Left out a man, come back and then swing your honey. Go round and round and then square your sets. Sides lead right, you circle, make a line. Move up and back there, Jack. You pass through, bend the line. Move up and back in time. Star through. You pass through, do a U-turn back, shake hands. Go right on left grand. Here we go. You promenade that girl, don't stop, don't slow down, you keep on moving around. Back out and make a ring, you circle left, I say. Men star right, go. That corner girl left down and band, come back, go right on left grand. Grand, go right on left, go round. Hook on, promenade that girl. All back home you go. All right. Give yourself a nice hand, you guys. Good show. Good show. So something like that piece of music I would use and just kind of prompt along with it and keep them moving and have a good time. It's a different piece of music and it's bluesy and people really get into that kind of thing. It's called Feel Good Blues. It's on Red Boot. It's Red Boot 3084. It's a singing call, but it just makes a great patter on there. We're talking about music that has words on it, and one piece of music that I use that has words on it that works out pretty good. And again, if it has words, I normally would prompt to it. I try not to, or in cases, try not to use choreography that's has just a few number of beats per call and stuff that's intricate, but stuff like we were just doing there. The ladies chain over, chain back, stuff that you just can prompt along with it. If you're using stuff that has words again with it. Here's an example. This is called Funky Town, and this is more for people out of the 70s. It's Casablanca. It's on my resource list there, but it's Casablanca. No, it isn't on my resource list. Yeah, 810 Casablanca 810. It's Funky Town by Lips Incorporated. So it's kind of a different beat, but it's a 45. I'm still kind of stuck in that mode, although I do use mini discs to get different. All right, 4 ladies chain. You roll away, join hands, circle left. 4 lady gonna roll away, circle left, go around then. I'm a left that corner girl, and a right on left grand. Promenade when you meet her. Promenade that girl around that ring. Back home and then heads up to the middle and back. Square through when they get 4 hands, they're jacked.
Gotta move on.
All meet your corner. Do side, do all the way around. Look her in the eye. Star through. Lines up to the middle and back. And a right or left through. Turn the girls. Do a star through. Alameda left that corner girl, and they come on back in a right or left grand. I don't like star through to Alameda left, but meet your girl. We're not sliding through yet. Promenade. take her right back home. Back home you go. Side pair, up to the middle, then you come on back. Pass through, separate round one, all the way into the middle, and a right and a left through. Then pass through, split the heads, round one, make a line, 8 to the middle, and you come on back with your opposite, box the net, smile at her, and a right and a left through. Star through, insides make an arch, dive through, center square through, 3/4 round to the corner, Alamana left, come back, square sets, you guys. That's good enough. That's kind of the way I'd approach something like that. So, Milt, you want to add anything, or?
Oh, want me to show my hex?
We can do hex. Is that kind of what you're looking for? You know, another thing that I like to use, and I'm sure some of you have these memorized pieces you use. We all have memorized bits we use. I like to use 1 and 2 do something, and 3 and 4 do something, and all of those things are memorized. For instance, 1 and 2 do a right and left through. Right here and right there. 1 and 2. New head ladies chain. Same heads roll away. Who's couple number 1? You get your back to the speaker. Number 1 couple, go right down the middle, split couple number 3, and go round 1 and make a line of 4. Okay, you guys stay put. 2 and 4, move up to the middle, and you come right back. Do a right and a left through. Turn the gal. Star through. This is totally memorized. Pass through. If you're looking at the line, split the line. Go round 2. Split them in the middle. Go right down 2. Hook on the ends and make a line of 6. Everybody look for your corner. Alaman left. Come back. Go right and left grand. So all of us use those little bits of things. And over the years at CALLERLAB conventions, we've had sessions that deal with these kind of little bits and pieces and I'm sure we all have them, and they're fun to do. I like to use those a lot. Intersperse those through the night, particularly on a party night.
Okay. One of the things I do for the third, fifth, or third, seventh, or ninth tip is hexes. Now, hexes, when you first set them up, you look and say, oh, this is scary. It really isn't, because basically anything you can do with 4 couples, you can do with 6. And it really isn't that difficult. For example, well, at 12 weeks, the dancers I work with know square through. So we start with a simple thing like square through 4. So heads square through 4. We'll walk through this and then I'll put it to music. Make a right hand star. So, head star by the left. Back to the same 2, do a right and left through. Now, here's where it gets a little bit tricky, because we're going to use a dive through, and in the centers, it gets a little tricky. Personally, I prefer pass to the center, and I actually teach that. So it's much easier for hexes to use pass to the center. However, dive through, we'll say my right-hand couple is the one that's going to make the arch. So that would be this couple, okay? Dive through and square through 3. Then everybody do an Alaman left, and you should be close to home. So these are things, and the dancers like it. Oh yeah. Pick one. Don't matter. Rebel Blues. It's got a long intro. Well, you're bound to the partner, and the corners too. Do an Alaman left, and a right and left grand. Now 6 hands, remember. And swing your girl in your promenade. And you get back home in a head pair, square through 4. Now make a right hand star, you know. Head star by the left. Back to the same 2 with a right and left through. And a dive through. And center square through. 3 hands around and then find that corner, Alaman left. should be right back home you go. Now the head's square through 4. Do a right and left through. Veer to the left. Wheel and deal. Make an ocean wave. Swing through. And the boys run around the girls. And you wheel and deal the face in there. It's lap down a man. And a right and up grand. And promenade around you go. Join hands, circle to the left, go around and in. Now ladies center, the men sashay. Circle left, go around that way, do an allemande left. Make an allemande. Go right and left, men wheeling, get a back up star, and a back on down the line. Slip the clutch, left allemande. Come in and a right and left grand. When you meet that girl, you promenade right back home. Now the nice thing with hexes is when you do grand squares, the side couples work independent. I mean, they do what they would normally do if you have your two couples across the heads. Heads as a couple each work as an individual. So when we do a grand square, the couples in the head position are going to make the turns and back out. So you'll have 4 backing out and then facing. So let's try sides, face, grand square. So the heads go in and turn as couples and then back out. Gets a little tight when we got this short of space. And now reverse. And it works well. The thing to remember in singing calls is, just a second, I'll get to you in just a minute. In singing calls, you have your choice. You can do an opener and 6 figures. You can do 3 figures and a break and 3 figures. Or you can do 6 figures and a closer. Because remember, you've got to move these people 6 times. So when you pick your music for using hexes, decide what you're going to do. If I have a piece of music that has a nice music break that I want to use for a grand square in the middle, I'll do 3 figures and a grand square and then 3 figures to get everybody back to their partner. And if I have a key change in the closer, I will probably use that instead of a figure. So, but decide ahead of time what you're going to do with the music you're going to use. But as you see, you can do basically anything with 6 couples that you can with 4.
Now, just to add to this, there is a way to dance with every other couple being the head couple, but you kind of work on the diagonal, and it's a little complicated for the dancers. This is much simpler. You can simply say, we've got 4 head couples and 2 side couples. You can do get-ins with the sides leading to the right and circle to a line, and it's one way if you want to emphasize circling to the line and you're trying to get your dancers to know how to circle to a line. It's a long walk all the way back to where she twirls her under at that very last minute so that last gal isn't backing up. And it's a neat way to make sure that they do circle to a line, because you have to circle up 6 and keep circling until you break on out and make a line. And you can have the sides pass through and separate and go around 4, and all the way back to their home spot. Things that will get you into normal 0 lines and box 1-4 type things, everybody looking at your corner, working with your corner type arrangements. I personally have had a hard time making the heads square through and do stars, because those people in the middle get lost when they come back to the stars very often. And you had no problem at all. And so I just, as a personal caution, I have a hard time making that work. Milt made that work well with you guys, but it's tough for me to do that. So a lot of times, if I'm having the head square through, I'll have them do-si-do to an ocean wave and, like swing through and wheel and deal like you did there. I'd be cautioned on the stars, because sometimes that's a little bit tough to do. Another one is Ferris wheel. Oddly enough, if you're doing them when you do Ferris wheel in there, sometimes the people coming to the center don't see each other and they don't get the fact that they need to wheel. I think that's another way of reinforcing the way you teach Ferris wheel, that the in-facers have to extend and have that 2-face line and then wheel and deal to face. So it's a good way when you're working with your new dancers to reinforce the definition of Ferris wheel by working in these sets of 6. So, had a question back there?
Not a question exactly, but you don't have to necessarily change the square dancing and hex squares like he had the head couples hold hands to do grand square. That's not really necessary. Sides face for me.
Go ahead, sides.
And all the heads walk forward, and all the heads individually face the center, and then you can keep doing grand square. Keep doing grand square. Back up, go forward, face, back away, face, and walk forward individually. And nobody's actually done anything different. They've done grand square exactly like they always done. So you don't have to.
I've tried it that way, and when you're working with new dancers that have only been dancing 10 to 12 weeks, they have difficulty with that tandem formation. But they understand couples.
Elmer Claycomb from Prescott Valley. I will offer that the way you showed to do grand square is how a grand square was originally done. It's my belief it was a 16-dancer movement, came out of the Lancers, and the way you showed is grand square. It dances beautifully because nobody tries to cut a corner then. And also, since I always teach it that way, I have no difficulty whatsoever with new dancers in hexes doing it.
Thank you, Elmer.
What's your record number on Rebel Blues?
Rebel Blues is quadrille 928. There is a number of different. The Red Boot. This is Rebel Blues. This is Rebel Blues on quadrille, and it's just the old Dwayne Eddy tune. It's just there are a number of different Rebel versions out, but this one in particular is Rebel Blues on quadrille. And I don't know. I've never used grand square. I use hex squares. I've never used grand square with it because I very often teach grand square with you're looking at your opposite or you're looking at your partner, and that doesn't really fit that definition if you're using those two rules with grand square. But I like that's fun to be able to do it that way, and I think once you've explained that to your dancers, you can certainly have them do it that way. Either which way. Yes. All right. We had another question. Wait, hold it. We got one. He's got the mic. Oh, okay.
Okay. I was just going to mention timing. When we try to apply a singing call that's been used on the back of a record, when you've got a hex square, you got to be careful.
Exactly. You really have to allow for the extra time to promenade and get back home. So you're going to swing before, and so you definitely need to change your figure. Yeah, definitely. Any other questions on the hexes? All right, why don't you guys hang on for just a sec, Chris?
We'll take that. Yeah, we'll just take a square, please. Usually at about the 12th night, I am just barely at circle to a line. So I have kind of a cute little figure that works nicely for that. It's a little bit different. And I ask the girls to hold up their right hand and do a come hither. Okay? All right? And that's all you really need to know for this one. The corner progression is slightly different, and you can lay that down for me, please. Okay, this is a nice little piece. I like the way it works. It's contemporary. Just slow that down just a touch for me. Down to about 42, actually. Works better for me. Good. Okay, we can run that again. Good. Okay. Just a simple intro, and then the figure is what I really want to look at, so we'll do that. 4 ladies chain right here. Chain her back. Join hands, circle. Alaman left, weave the ring. I'm gonna live, I'm gonna laugh, I'm gonna love. Meet a girl, swing, and then promenade. I'm gonna drink from that cup of happiness. I'm gonna live, I'm gonna laugh, I'm gonna love. And the heads go right and left through. Same ladies chain. Side couples go forward and back. Side couples lead to the right, circle to a line. Everybody has a line, go forward and back. Girls come hither like that. Boys walk across and swing. Take her hand and then promenade. So that works nicely. It's a cute little thing. We'll do that one more time and then we'll wrap that because I don't need to do the whole thing. But it works. And the heads go right and left through. Same ladies chain. Side couples go forward and back. Say hey. Sides lead right, circle to a line. Everybody go forward and back, just like that. Girls do the come hither thing, boys walk across and swing. Take her hand and promenade. All right, just like that. You know, it's just a cute little figure. It's very simple, and it has a little participation in it. That thing, that works pretty nicely. That is ESP, and it's Live, Laugh, and Love, and it's ESP 1040. Is that what it is? Yes, 1040. So that's it's a very upbeat piece of music, and it works nicely, and people are moving well to it. So that's just one little cute figure I use. Again, on 12 nights, I could be anywhere with a 1-hour teach program. It could be anywhere up through a California twirl, maybe a dive through if things are working well. But with the 1-hour limitations, it usually takes me quite a bit longer to get through my programs.
Something that was brought up, when you're working with hexes, and you do the dive through, the centers, if you will, simply just pass through rather than worrying about a dive through.
I don't know, how many of you have a lot of angels that help out in your class? Or you have a good percentage of it. Do a lot of you after a while have a little bit of problem with dive through? I mean, I know with my groups, I have a hard time getting some of my older angels to, because some of my angels are members that have been in my club for a long time, and they don't necessarily show up all the club dances, but they're there at every class, and they have a hard time doing a dive through. So very often, early on, as Milt does, I teach them pass to the center, and I use it as an opportunity to explain a little bit of history of dancing, that there was a time in the 60s when women had huge hairdos, and those of us that danced back then remember that all of a sudden when some huge hairdo lady would dive under, you just couldn't put your hand up hard enough to get their hair underneath your arms. So that's when pass to the center, and we have a whole gamut of calls that came out around that time as a response to women's high hairdos. I was fairly short in the 60s, and I was jumping to try to get over these people. And same thing with star through and slide through. So I use that to explain a little bit of history and how styles could sometimes affect our dancing. And I think, and they laugh about it, but then I show them pass to the center, and at that stage on, it's pretty easy to do it. So I include pass to the center early mainly for my angels, because some of them have a hard time understanding that dive through, and they end up walking around the right side of the new dancer, and the dancer's looking at them like, what are you doing? And they're actually trying to do a pass to the center. So
I teach pass to the center at week 4. I tell them now, when you're out dancing, you're going to hear dive through a lot more. But it's the same move, except instead of passing through, you go under. It's dive through. Personally, this is my opinion, is one of my pet peeve moves, because by the time they decide who's going to duck under and get done bobbing, they're 2 beats of timing out. And so pass to the center is a much smoother move. It does exactly the same thing for us. And in a lot of cases, with their offset slightly to the left, it just sets up a square through anyway. So,
I mean, I still like dive through, don't get me wrong. I think it helps your dancers to get that concept because they're holding hands with each other. And you're also teaching California twirl somewhere along that line, too. So, but Milt has a copy of his list. By the way, Milt has a book on the multi-cycle program and what he uses in that program. It's a good book. When Milt just showed me these lists and what he teaches on specific nights, I always find it fascinating to see different people teaching different ways, and think it's kind of interesting because and he has these lists. I'd encourage him to publish them just so he could people could see what different people are doing. Any other comments?
Let's do one more thing. I want to do a contra.
A contra? All right. Anybody want to look at a contra? Okay.
Do y'all know how to set up contra lines?
Right on one side and go through.
Yes. 1, 3, and 5 crossed over, proper.
You can from a simple square. If they're in squares, you want to set up a contra line, and sometimes the dancers will get mad at you if they didn't want to do a contra, and you sneak them into it. But you guys have it. But you can simply have the heads lead right, circle to a line, and you know everybody that line pass through and do a U-turn back, and you're in a proper or improper duple, I should say, or 1, 3, and 5 crossed over.
Yeah. Okay. The active couples are the men with their backs to me. Okay, so this one is called Homososa, and this happens to be one that is a nice, easy teach. It gives you a lot of use with stars and ladies' chains. So on a night when I'm working with this, I'll introduce something like this. Okay, active couples, do-sa-do. Now with the corner, swing. Put her on the right and half promenade. Come back with a right and left through. Okay. To a left-hand star. Go back by the right. And the lady's chain. Now see, the lady's hands are right there in the star, and all they've got to do is pull by and chain them back. And now you see we've made a progression. Everybody's moved down one spot in the line. Okay. Active couples, do-sa-do. It's still the same people. Now with the corner, and because we only have 4, there's only 2 people that can do that, and that's the centers. With the corner swing. Put her on the right, half promenade. Come back with a right and left through. To a left-hand star. Back by the right. Now when they're coming back by the right, I tell my people that if you're with the same people, if you're next to the same sex, trade sides, okay? And the ladies chain across in the middle. The others will be changing sides. Yep, you guys will change over and chain them back. And now you will notice that one of the active couples has now become inactive, and we now have a new active couple. Okay, so anytime you're this way, you're an active couple. I just picked this record because it was laying there. Contras can be used with any type of music. No, you active couples, do-sa-do. Now with the corner you swing. Put her on the right. Now half promenade the ring. Come back, go right and left through. To a left-hand star. I turn that star you do. Now go back by the right.
This is how you act when you give your heart away.
And the ladies chain.
I'll take you back.
Turn and chain them right back.
You told me I was everything.
And the active couples, do-sa-do.
Then tell me what you're doing now.
And now with that corner swing.
You're bringing home.
Put her on the right. And half promenade the ring. Come back, go right and left through. You turn the girl for me. Now left-hand star and turn it. The others cross over. Go back to the right. And ladies chain. And chain them back. Now active couples, do-sa-do. With that corner swing. Put her on the right, half promenade. Go right and left through. Left-hand star. And after a while, they'll get this and you won't have to do much. Back by the right. Ladies chain. And chain them back. All right. And that's just a nice, simple little contra, and you can use all kinds of music with it. Like the one I use most frequently is called Bailamos, and it's by Enrique Iglesias. It just is a nice, flowing little dance, and it's easy to learn.
You know, one of the things I do contra sessions at several festivals I do throughout the year, and maybe just an hour and a half period of time. I find that there are a number of contras out there that do not have actives and inactives. You do have to make sure they cross over at the end, because sometimes they have a hard time with the actives inactives concept. But after they've been dancing a while, I think it's a neat thing to bring. It's like having ones and threes or head couples or side couples. So if you can start out with a contra that does not have like Howl's Break and some of the other ones that are listed in this book we talked about before, you you have an easier chance of introducing them without confusing the dancers, because that sometimes can be a problem. But you're using basic figures, and the neatest part about contours is you're teaching them to dance with a musical phrase and to begin their dancing on the one beat. And that is such a nice thing to be able to give your dancers. If you can give them the number one beat on a figure, it makes all the difference in the world. Just wanted to look at a couple other pieces of music. This reminds me of a contra music. It is a brand new hoedown out on Global. It's called Braveheart. It's Global 507. I don't know if some of you are using this, but it's slick, and it's neat to be just using as a regular pattern, but it's almost got a contra feel to it, and this is a traditional contra piece. Let's just square your set. Allemande, left that corner, girl, do an Allemande bar. Go right and left in the menu star. Turn to the left and shoot the star. Forward to another star. Make men back and make a dar. Shoot the star in her bottle left grand. It's a neat piece of music. Promenade. Sometimes you have to turn down the treble just a tiny bit depending on your settings, but take it right back home. Anytime you got bagpipes, watch the dancers' heads move up to the middle and they come on back, the heads square through. Do-si-do all the way around. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up there, that's a neat piece of music to do. What did you say, Milt?
I said the Italians invented bagpipes. They gave it to the Scots and they never caught the joke.
I'll tell you, the interesting thing about it, I was talking to Doug Bennett, who recorded this on Global, and they had to stick that bagpipe in the studio as far back as they could get it. He says, that is such a loud instrument. He said, there's just incredible noise that thing makes. And so, but it's interesting to have that piece of music, which is, I would consider kind of a traditional piece of music, but it's a neat one to have in your case. Another one that I like a lot is this one on Down Under Records called One World, and it's actually a John Denver song. John Denver wrote this song years ago, in his later years, I should say, but it's almost has a reggae feel to it, and it's a neat piece of music. It's a singing call. I just use it as a pattern, but good square your sets if you guys. One World on Down Under Records. Let's get that kind of prompt to it. I like the 4 ladies chain across. You join hands, circle to the left, go around. Ladies center in the mid-sachet. All ladies center in the mid-sachet. And then Allemande left that corner, girl in her right left, grand around. Grand right and a left in your promenade. Take a little walk back home and you get back there, and then heads move up to the middle and back. You pass through and separate round one. Come down the middle and you pass through and split the outside two. And you go round the one, down the middle, and then you start through. He passed through left down a man. Come on back in a right left grand. Grand go right in a right left grand around. Hey, meet your girl in your promenade. Take a little walk back home. Anyway, it's a neat piece of music to use. And there's another one out on Down Under. I was working with another caller who used another piece of, so keep your eyes out. And when you hear a piece of music that's different, at first I thought that's kind of strange, but it's got a reggae feel to it, and if you're working with kids or younger dancers, they kind of like it, a little bit different beat, and it was fun to dance to, wasn't it? It's a neat dancing piece. Chris? The other record was Braveheart on Global. The one, I don't know what the other Down Under record, because I wrote it down and I ordered it, and it's yet to come to my house yet. So, there's another. Go out and check out the records. Go to the exhibitor's booth and listen under some. It's different when you get a different label coming out. It's kind of fun because sometimes you get a little bit different. You get a little bit different band to back you up. So.
Our time is just about up. I want to kind of wrap this up with one final thing. Thank you, dancers, very much for helping us out. As you notice, all three of us did kind of the same thing in our figures. And you will find that when you're working with new dancers, in retrospect to experienced dancers, you keep your figures fairly short before you get them to an Allemande left. The secret to making new dancers keep dancing is to make them succeed And the more often they succeed and the more fun they have doing it, the more they will come back. And if they're having fun, it's going to pass on to their friends and they'll bring them back. And so keep your figures short. Make sure your dancers succeed. And if you're trying something and it doesn't work, don't do it anymore. Yeah, discretion. But do some research with music. Experiment with some different types of music, because there is a lot of variety out there. A tremendous amount of music available to us. And with the technologies that we have now, it doesn't make any difference whether it has vocals or not. There are ways that you can get rid of the vocals if you just like the music. Or if it's to a point where you can call with the vocals so they don't interfere with your prompting, by all means use them. But have a lot of fun, keep them dancing, and Mike, you have a final comment?
Just be enthusiastic with your teaching. Teach with some passion. If you have a passion about this dance and you're excited about it, your dancers will be excited about it. It makes such a huge difference. Approach the dance. If you need to get motivated because you've been working all day and you're tired, take a couple deep breaths and shift gears and go in there and have fun, because it'll come right back to you. And if you're enthusiastic, we are selling this dance. If it's just ho-hum and you're not giving them the big picture of dancing, you're not talking about a little bit of the history and making this product what it really can be, then you're selling these dancers short, and it's just like another dance at the local school or church. So sell it. Be out there and be enthusiastic. Teach with some passion. All right? Thank you guys for joining us. Time to eat.